Hey, co-reporters, welcome back to my channel. I was just doing a Love is Blind little rewatch as I was preparing my videos about Zainab earlier today, and I noticed something, and it's something that's going to surprise you a little bit. What I'm about to say is a little bit crazy, but I do believe it's true. Bartise was going to stand by Nancy and be with her, love her, and say yes at the altar. The only thing that got between them is not the mere fact that he saw Raven in person. Like, he saw her in person and he thought that she was beautiful, okay, at this point. And he expressed feeling that way, but he was not at all interested in leaving Nancy for Raven until a certain something happened. Okay, so what I'm about to do is show you episode 4 of season 3 of the show, and you're going to see what happens. So at this point, Bartise has already met Raven, okay? And so Cole is upset because he is not as in love with Zainab after seeing her in person, because she's very negative, and she's very condescending, and she's very passive aggressive. And so he's looking to SK and Bartise for advice, and Bartise is on cloud 9 with his girl Nancy. Like, he loves her, and he kept saying this episode as well that he was wildly attracted to her. Okay, so here Bartise is saying, and of course I can't play the audio, but he's saying, yes, he would marry Nancy. If I had to say yes or no today, I would say yes, I do. We've encountered no problems so far. Anything serious that's come up, we've talked through maturely. So there you go, you guys. You know, we talked at the pool, we talked in the beds, and everything has been great. He's like, look at her. I've known her for 48 hours, and I would say yes, absolutely, to marrying that girl. He couldn't have been any more sure. So what happened, you guys? What happened that caused Bartise to suddenly lose interest in Nancy? Because as we know now, he does eventually lose interest in Nancy and no longer kind of wants to marry her. Let me show you what I believe contributed to that. Okay, you guys? I believe that what actually happened is that SK came into the picture and accidentally put down the idea in Bartise's head that maybe, just maybe, even though he likes Nancy and everything's going well with Nancy, she's a beautiful woman and they get along well, maybe, just maybe, he actually has a shot with SK's fiance Raven. Because at this point, SK tells him, hey, listen, me and Raven have not yet gotten intimate. Okay, like, we are sitting pretty far away from one another in the beds and everything like that. Here it goes. SK says, night 1, walk in progress. Okay, and here's one thing that's crazy. Everybody else slept with each other on the first night, and so this is why SK talking about how there was no intimacy between he and Raven and how they were kind of far from each other in bed overnight really set off the alarm bells in Bartise's head. He goes, oh, they were sitting on opposite edges of the couch. What's going on there? And so at this point, Bartise, who was so happy with Nancy up until this point, he goes, wait a minute. If it were me and Raven, I'm sorry to say this, but I believe that she would have been in my lap the same way that Nancy was on my lap night 1. So here he goes saying it right here, right then and there. So I think that this is the moment where he realizes that, wait a damn minute, I'm about to go from good to great. Not that I think that Nancy is good and Raven is great, but I think that this is the way that it played out in his head, that he wanted to go from Nancy to Raven. And he kind of felt like he was about to get that the reason why potentially that Raven did not get super duper close with SK intimately night 1 was because SK was her consolation prize, because Bartise wound up rejecting her. I think that he believed that Raven felt like Jessica did in season 1 of the show. If you guys recall, Jessica wanted to get to engage to Barnett, who is on our left. He ultimately wound up choosing Amber instead of her. And so she wound up getting engaged to Mark instead and spent the majority of season 1 lusting after Barnett. And so when Barnett learned that Raven was not very lovey-dovey, not very physically close With SK, I believe that with the big ego that he has, and we all know he has a gigantic ego, he assumed that it was because Raven wanted to be with him. And because he was attracted to Raven, he thought she was beautiful. At first, when he saw her here, he was like, she's beautiful, but Nancy is my girl. I would say yes to Nancy 100%. But now at this point, his thinking switches and goes, wait a minute, Raven's not happy. I like Raven, so why don't I start seeing and exploring whether or not it's possible for us to have some kind of a future together? And so I think that that's where things kind of really like go downhill. Now, if you watched my earlier video, this is not the first time that the gears start turning in someone's head when they see someone that they used to date in the pods. So for example, earlier in the one that I posted about Zenab earlier today, we talked about how Cole was initially all about her. He complimented her so much. He said he was really attracted to her. But the thing about Zenab is that Zenab is incredibly, incredibly negative and self-deprecating. So when Cole sees Colleen, who is bubbly, positive, and fun to be around, everything that he thought that Zenab was, and she turned out not to be, he starts kind of leaning more towards her way, trying to figure out what she's all about and seeing if there can potentially be something between the two of them. So I do think it's kind of interesting how it wound up playing out that both Cole and Bartise were initially attracted to their partners, and just seeing what caused them to lose the attraction. So for Bartise, it was more like, okay, well, I think Nancy's beautiful and everything, and I would be happy to get married to her. But the thing is, Raven doesn't seem to be really into her guy. Raven is super hot. Maybe it's because she's into me. Like, it was a very, very egotistical way of thinking on his perspective. And then when it came to Cole, he just wanted to be happy. He wanted to have fun. And there was no way he was going to have that with Zenab. And so he started wondering if that was something that he can have with Colleen instead. Anyway, you guys, these are just my conspiracy theories. I could be all the way off base here, but I just gotta say, when you rewatch this show, knowing what you now know, a lot of things start to click a little bit more in retrospect. So this is kind of just the idea that I got based off of a rewatch with all the information that we've got right now. But do feel free to let me know how you feel, whether or not you're on the same page. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.